Ready? Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. Excuse me, it's a special meeting of City Council for City of Hollister, April 22nd, and it is 6:02 p.m. Can I get, let's see, Rick, would you lead the Pledge of Allegiance for us? So. City Clerk, could you take roll?
Councilmember Perez, Vice Mayor Resendez, Councilmember Morales, Councilmember Burns,
Here.
and Mayor Casey.
Here.
I'd also like to report that the agenda for the City Council of the City of Hollister special meeting of April 22nd, 2024 was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on April 19th, 2024 at 4:45 p.m. for Government Code Section 54954.2. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get started, we only have one item of business tonight. Do we have any public comment on that item?
Sorry, Mayor Casey, we do have one public comment. Sherry Bakke.
Good evening. I'm speaking this evening to encourage you to plan for the benefits of tourism. Your preliminary strategic goals, including economic development, public safety, downtown revitalization, and sustainability, could be enhanced by adding tourism as an objective within all these goals. Currently, transient occupancy tax, TOT, is projected at $550,000 annually. This is twice as much as business license fees, and it's paid for by people who don't live here, but benefit from Hollister. I understand the November ballot will include an initiative to increase the TOT. This is a much needed increase. However, I'm advocating for the City Council to be even more deliberate toward capitalizing on the benefits of tourism. San Benito County has a plethora of tourism assets, including a national park, and Hollister is positioned to market these assets. Do you know that C. Monterey tells its tourists to visit Pinnacles instead of us telling people to visit Pinnacles? They have an $8 million tourism budget. Through the adoption of a tourism improvement district, Hollister could market and benefit from all our tourism assets, not only Pinnacles National Park, but the Hollister Hills, the Cienega Wine Trail, Casa de Fruta, Ridgemark Golf, along with car shows, parades, rodeos, and all the wonderful activities at the French Ranch. According to Civitas Advisors, for every dollar raised by a tourism improvement district, there is a $70 return to the economy. If we had no growth and did a 2% assessment district, that would mean our marketing budget would be $140,000 the first year. Consider that $70 economic return, and we get just about $10 million in economic benefit. The California State Tourism Office and many other destinations receive their TID funding through an assessment on accommodations, attractions, restaurants, retail, and transportation. Perhaps Hollister could assess the tourist on all these purchases as well. I encourage you to invest in a consultant to guide our opportunities for the responsible and sustainable promotion of tourism as a proven objective towards strengthening our local economy. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you everyone for being here tonight. We've got a little workshop planned, and I'm going to let the city manager take over and give us a little report out. It's going.
Good evening and thank you. We have the good fortune this evening of having Dr. Sean Spano here to facilitate the fiscal year 24-25 goal setting meeting. As you may know, we did receive direction to enter into a contract with Dr. Spano. We have gone through that process, and I will pass it over to Dr. Spano to give an overview and then to kick off the workshop. Spano.
annotated other handouts and some other supplemental material to work through this. So let me just take a couple minutes and get us organized. There are two purposes for tonight's meeting. Hear me okay, Jennifer? Two purposes for tonight's meeting, and that primary purpose is goal setting. And so what we're looking to do this evening is to identify 3 to 5 strategic goals that will identify what is of strategic importance to Hollister. That is the primary goal. Underneath, and I'll describe this in just a minute, in a little bit, underneath those goals are objectives. That is, what does staff need to do to accomplish those goals? So we want to get as far as we can get on identifying what those objectives are. But first, what are those big strategic goals? That is the primary purpose of tonight's meeting. And I would call it a success if we leave this evening and you've identified what those strategic goals are, you've come to agreement on what those strategic goals are, and you've given staff enough direction on what you want to see accomplished underneath those goals. Primary purpose number 1. The second purpose is we're going to check in on the organizational, political, and community climate here in Hollister. And as you recall from our pre-meeting interviews, I asked you about that, and I'll have some observations based on what you told me. I also have the pleasure of interviewing your directors, your department heads, ask them about the organizational, political, and community climate. And so I'll provide some observations based on what I've heard from staff and based on what I've heard from you 5. There's no action item around climate. It's really, let's just hear what my interpretation, my observations, my reflections on what I heard from you all, and we can have a discussion and take that as long or as deep as you want to take that. But there's no specific action item around the organizational, political, community climate topic here. I'm looking at the annotated agenda and the second bullet under set workshop context, preview agenda and format. That's what I'm doing right now. Just to let you know, we'll do a quick warm-up exercise when I work through the rest of the context setting, then we'll get into the goals, and then we'll get into the organizational climate. One of the questions, as you recall from our pre-interviews, was I asked, what are your hopes for the workshop? What would you like to see? What don't you want to see at the workshop? I also asked staff that question, your department heads. And here's a summary of what you all told me. You would like council to come prepared to have a thoughtful and substantive discussion about issues, the actual issues, and as they translate into strategic goals. I heard this from several people, and I totally endorse that, identifying a small number of goals, the number just throwing out, we don't need to be really hard and specific on this, 3 to 5 is a good number. That are best. Now, these are the goals that are best for the city. And the idea here is that you don't want to have 12 goals because then they kind of get watered down. And you want to also choose a limited number of goals because you have you don't have unlimited capacity and unlimited resource. So you don't want to set yourself up not to be successful. You want to set yourself up to be successful. It's relatively easy to identify the goals and objectives. It's a whole other story to actually accomplish those goals and objectives, and you want to be successful. Council achieves consensus on the goals by the end of the workshop with clear direction and expectations for staff. Collaborate and engage in productive discussion. Ensure all council members are invited to participate. No one dominates and no one is excluded. Send the workshop materials in advance, which staff did on Friday. Council and staff, interesting on these next two. Council and staff commit to the goals for the coming year, following through and making them a priority. I've done lots of goal setting with different cities and different agencies, and I hear that very consistently. We don't want to identify the goals and then kind of forget about them or ignore them. they really do rise in prominence in terms of setting the vision and the strategic direction for the city. And they should take that precedence and be at the forefront of the work that you all do. And the goals that are identified do take precedent over the one-off tasks that council requests of staff. Now, there's nothing wrong with those requests that you make of staff. Constituent concerns, they're part of the job. As staff told me, what they don't do is they don't provide a strategic direction. They don't provide stability, prioritization, or strategic direction. That's what the strategic goals do. And they're very valuable. Strategic goals are very valuable to a city because what they do is they do set the vision. And who is in charge of setting the vision? You. That is a key function of your role, to set the vision and the policy that goes with the vision, and the strategic goals are a vehicle for doing it. So any questions at all about any of these? Hopes for what happens tonight? Really great list. I did ask how I can be helpful to you all and to this process in terms of facilitating. And I was told that I should keep the group on task and on time, ensuring that the workshop purposes are achieved. Absolutely, that's my role as a facilitator. And that I should intervene if the discussion becomes personal, unprofessional, or veers away from workshop purposes. And so I am neutral about all the issues tonight. What I'm not neutral about is the process. I value open and honest communication, discussion, and dialogue, and I'm back up to you all wanting to collaborate and engage in productive discussion, and I'm here to help make that happen. My commitment to you all is to facilitate and help you all achieve the workshop purposes, primarily identifying those goals and giving staff direction around the objectives. I've been working for 25 years or so doing consulting work with local government, and I love local government. I'm committed to local government, and I love to see local government work well. And so that's my commitment to you, to do what I can to help Hollister achieve those strategic goals and those purposes. Agreements for effective communication: be present and engage, speak freely, listen to understand. That's a real key for me. Candid speaking. No problem. I've never experienced that problem with council members. They're very good at candid speaking and open listening. It's not enough just to speak. You listen to your colleagues, try to understand your colleagues. It doesn't mean that you agree with them, but you try to understand their view from their perspective. Challenge ideas, not the person. That relates into respect, having respect for each other, and maximize participation. Obviously, we need to hear from all of you. These are council strategic goals, and they should reflect the views of the council collectively. So with that said, then, any questions at all at this point about the process, what we're doing? Yes, Councilman.
Thank you. So, yeah, according to the process, I think one of the questions we had were, if we're going to set goals, I heard you say that you want us to implement, execute these within the next year. So what are we looking at time-wise, length? And then when would be a good time to do this again, if this was not like the most appropriate time?
Excellent question. And I put the year out there just to get started. But as we start talking tonight and you start identifying some of the objectives, your city manager might step in and say, this is a 2-year project. This is 5 years. There's no way we could get that done in a year. And that's okay. And I would, one of the things that I'll also mention is, we're not going to have your strategic goals and objectives all up. What staff needs is they need direction from you. We'll go do some work. We're not going to wordsmith tonight. We're not going to get down to sentence level. That's just painful to do sort of group writing. But and I'll work with Dave and his staff, and let us take that and put it together in a package, coherent, massage it, refine it, make sure it's all, together, put together, and then we'll bring that back to you for a formal adoption. And I think I mentioned this at the council meeting in March. This is a great thing to do, Amy, to have an annual goal setting session, and maybe it's roughly at this time of the year. And it's not to say you would get updates from staff periodically throughout the year. How are we doing on that goal? Give us an update in December or October or whatever. But then really sit back at the annual goal setting meeting and say, okay, where are we? Do we want to keep these goals? Some of them might come off the list. Or do we want to add a new goal? Maybe one comes off and a new one comes in. And as we mentioned, a council turnover, you'll have a new council in the end of this year into next year, and they may come in with some different ideas and have different interests, and they may want to make some changes, but it's a living document then. So does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay, so any other questions here about the process? How we're spending our time together this evening? Okay, so let's just do a quick warm-up exercise. We can start with the council member Perez and just work around the table. What do you see as the top 1 or 2 city accomplishments in the past year? What jumps out at you?
Being fully staffed, our department heads, pretty much coming into being, all the positions pretty much being, almost being filled. I'm tremendously happy with the way staff is going. I know there's probably hiccups and stuff we were fixing, but I'm extremely satisfied with staff. I can't speak enough for them. Even Gordon.
I would have to echo the first comment. I think when I first got on council, we were at 45% in terms of vacancies in the department head level. So that's a huge accomplishment. The second is, administration, departments that's working to make sure that government operations functions efficiently and effectively. And that's providing the proper infrastructure from policies, procedures to just training staff to do the work that needs to be done in compliance with statutory and all the laws.
Well, I agree with my colleagues. The staffing, you can't get anything done when you've got such huge vacancy rates. And we didn't just get staff, we got great staff that's working really well together. And there's a lot of change happening at City Hall, a lot of procedural things being implemented. So it's like starting to watch it function really well is exciting. The other thing I'm super excited about is we have a capital improvements program that we put together for roads and pavement. And it's been a long time coming, and we've got old 100-year-old alleys, 3 of them that are going to finally get worked on. So I'm super excited that we made that a priority and put it into the, got it out there. So those are.
Thank you.
So, wow.
Maybe we'll turn this off.
For me, it's about leadership. In the 3.5 years that I've been on council, we've turned over leadership, and with that, we've gotten the results, the desired end results of accountability and transparency. For me, those are huge. And then the second step in that process has been with the city manager's ability to develop his team as it relates to department heads and as it trickles down to managers and line staff. And so that's very critical. And my second one would be our ability to maintain what I believe is adequate, not desired, but adequate public safety. I think we've done very well through the department heads. So for me, that would be my focus. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you. So I think that the POI, Monica's been doing a great job, but this is the most public engagement that I've ever seen since I've been on the council. A lot of education getting pushed out over social media. I think they're doing a fantastic job in engaging the public and educating the public. Again, our city manager coming forward this year is, again, like my colleague stated, he's the most professional, qualified city manager that I've had the opportunity to work with. And I think that he's done a great job of bringing on some administration that's that echoes the same. So those would be the top two things that I can think of. Thank you.
Very good. When I ask that question about accomplishments, I worry sometimes is it going to be silence? We don't have anything to say on accomplishments, but that was not the case here this evening. It was a great list. Okay, we are ready to move into our first and the most important topic this evening, which is the goals. Just as a preamble for that and set that up in your package, you have a couple supplemental handouts. You have the iceberg model of municipal work. You can start there, and this just sets the stage, provide a little bit of context and background of what's going on. So we have, this is an iceberg. Not very good artistic. I should draw on some help in this area. It's very good. The iceberg, so you've got the water line and then you've got what's above the iceberg. What's above the iceberg is the vision for the city's future. And this is the governing body, you all, council, strategic priorities, policy direction, budget. That's, you have authority over that. What is the vision? What are the strategic priorities? The policy direction, obviously budget adoption is a major factor in the work. Below the water is the routine work of the city, routine work of the city, and this is from the work of Nelson. He's a public administrator at the University of Kansas in public administration, but he also was on council and was the mayor in the city where the University of Kansas is. So he has both a public administration background as an academic, but he's also was a mayor and council member. So he says about 80% of the work of the city is below the water line, which would be about 20% is above the water line, and that's not. So this is the routine work. This is the day-to-day service that stands provides. The governing body council does not usually make decisions about routine activities except as part of the budget. That's to the city manager or staff, which delivers that. So what's the relationship between the two? We have a strategic goal above the water line, special attention, special resources, and you work on that for a year, maybe a little bit more than depending on what the goal and the objectives are. And then we kind of got it. Staff says we have this, and it moves below the water line and becomes part of the routine work of the city. And then it becomes part of the general operating budget. So that's it. Very important. These goals don't go. They move below the water line. So where is council focus? They're above the water line, right? The vision, the strategic priorities, the policies that are behind it. The next document that you have are strategic goals, objectives, and work. Again, strategic goals above the water line that identifies what's the organization wants to achieve over a period of time, a year, 5 years. You're identified based and developed based on information, needs, and interests of the strategic goals for the quality of life. Strategic goals. Urgent and objectives, statements that contribute to enable each goal. Sometimes it goes to sub-goal or naming. Objectives are more specific and so tonight we love to have a board with 3 to 5 strategic goals. We'll start on the objectives, giving staff direction on what we want to see achieved. Once that gets identified, then staff they have their direction, they can start developing work around those objectives. who's going to do what resources, what timeline, what are the metrics? That staff's prerogative and that staff's authority, but they play those development. Now, much later, after the goals are identified, the metrics are identified, and you've all. Now, again, that's music to staff's ears because you've given them solid direction, and now they know, here's what we need to do. And it's mentioned in your topic, you have great staff here. And once they know what the direction is, then they're ready to go. Don't stop them at that. So they're set, right? But in the absence of that, they're not sure where to go. Right? And so then there's a lot of perhaps spinning of wheels and not getting traction and not being as effective. So I'm obviously biased because I value strategic planning and strategic goal setting. So any questions at all about that before we get into the nuts and bolts? Yes.
So the area that I don't see here is in operations. Where does the community and public input come into play? So when things are not functioning, we had somebody come in, talk about their bike and interactions with police. We have people saying planning fees, something's broken. So where does that come into the strategic planning? Because I definitely agree. In normal operations, have your strategic planning, you have your overall goals, you have a vision, you have a
And yeah. You're speaking for the you have the right thoughts. So speaking for the this is what we think we based on what what we is I have not done this, but I do know that there are some cities that do elicit input from the community about the strategic goals, and that can be done process that will typically so sometimes cities will do a survey to the community. How are we doing? Are we addressing the right issues? Are we addressing that need to be addressed? And then everybody gets that. Okay, the next one we can into the nuts and bolts here. So the next one connection path. Preliminary strategic goals. So these were compiled and there you'll see there were 10 that were identified for potential consideration. The first 4 were identified multiple times. And so let's just walk through this. I did ask them what you would like to see staff accomplish, and it was very lengthy. And so what we want to do here, the 2-step process. What are we going to identify them first, then go back and start plugging in to get to the practice. So you have infrastructure. There's identified, I think, 5 infrastructure. one way, shape, or form. And it wasn't formally clean because I asked what a goal is and what you wanted to see accomplished, and sometimes there would come up with accomplishment. Sort of more of an objective than a goal. So it's not formally clean and there's not like hard and fast number here, but most of you, not all of you, mentioned infrastructure. In a lot of different ways. Infrastructure is a pretty broad category. The other one that was identified consistently, budget, finance, and development. They weren't always tied together. They tied them together. Budget and finances. And what I heard was needing to be good stewards and monitoring our expenditures and being careful about how we spend the public's money. The other thing I heard was new revenue sources, bring in new revenue and enhance the revenue sources we have. And that's the economic development, which is also a pretty broad category. You can remember tourism. There was a quality of communities, programs, seniors, and families looked in across the lifespan, and which also included public safety as a quality of life. Now, they want to think about this, council. They have a quality of life goal, happenings around seniors, youth, and programming, amenities, and facilities, from the right county public safety. There's also an option for having public safety as a standalone goal itself. A lot of communities have it. So public safety usually shows up in cities' strategic plan, better than a goal or a standalone. And then another one that was consistently identified was community engagement. Communication, transparency, informing the public, outreach to the public, but also engaging with the public. And social media comes up there a lot, obviously, but then traditional media as well, your website and so forth. The other ones that were identified, these were all one-offs: downtown revitalization, development and housing, environment and sustainability, campaign finance reform, organizational administrative improvements, and services reform. Yes, Councilman.
So just so I'm clear, the first 4 goals here, which is infrastructure, budget, finance, and economic development, quality of life, including public safety, community engagement, and communication and transparency. Those are the ones that you identified that came up a number of times from this council.
Yes.
And that's why they're at the top of the list.
Yes.
From 5 down, those were just one-offs that were identified from this
Yes.
council. Okay. So you said we have to come up with how many?
Well, typically it's around 3 to 5.
3 to 5. Okay. And then I'm just looking at it and I'm thinking that if we're identifying big goals, that possibly 5 through 10 might be objectives that fit underneath these bigger goals. Can't they?
Yeah, if it makes sense,
Okay.
right? If it makes sense that it folds under and it's consistent with the goal, absolutely.
Okay.
I would also say this, remembering the iceberg model. Just because development and housing is not a strategic goal, doesn't mean that staff's not working on it. Because that's part of, you have programs, services around housing. You've got a whole community development department that's, permitting with permits and all of that. So that work is getting done on a day-to-day basis. Does it rise to the level of a strategic goal, given your current situation right now? And that's where the hard decisions need to be made in terms of what really is a strategic goal. And then again, I'm not saying it's less than, but this is below the waterline, and we're just going to let staff go ahead and just do what's on their work plans already, and we don't give it special attention or special resources. What if, council, you chose those first 4 goals? And based on my conversations with you, what I heard was that's where the collective agreement is around those first 4 goals. Councilmember Burns.
Thank you. So for me, I absolutely understand what you've said. I, for one, think public safety should be broken out to be a goal of its own. And I think to prioritize those would be appropriate in my mind because they're all interwoven, they're all interconnected, and they certainly lead to other conversations. But I mean, if nothing else matters if you don't have a safe environment. The bottom line is, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If it's not safe, nothing else matters. And so for me, I struggle. Naturally, I want to think budget first, public safety second. But candidly, I think public safety first, budget second. I think everything else then tends to fall in line. And for me, I can't see where I see a real difference in public safety, quality of life. Because again, if we don't have safe parks, it doesn't matter how nice our parks are, frankly. So for me, I think there's value in a greater refinement and definition of the individual priorities.
I should advise me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that makes sense and I can support that. And if we were to do that, Councilmember Burns, it would give us five goals out of the first four, right? If we were to break up quality of life and public safety, which makes sense, then it'll give us five if we take the top four. So I'm supportive of that.
Yeah, I guess I look at it differently, just
Okay.
because to me, having good public safety is your quality, it's part of your quality of life. So I don't look at it as separate, but I look at it as very important. And the quality of life, if we're doing objectives, it would be right up there at the top for
Yeah,
me,
very
you
good.
know, so I just look at it differently.
Very good. And we'll hear from the other two. The other thing, and this was in response to your question about the community. Remember, you're signaling to the community when you say, as the council, these are our 3, 4, 5 strategic goals. You're communicating to the community what is of importance to you. So there's that messaging aspect to this as well. And I don't mean symbolic and not real, but there's symbolism in that. And saying, here are our 5 strategic goals. So your thoughts about public safety as a standalone goal?
It seems like we're moving into the area of like, what are our core values and our beliefs, right? And that those are non-negotiable in people's minds, so we can easily become very positional with that conversation. I'm wondering if we could define what does public safety mean to me? Because for Mr. Burns, it could be law enforcement. For me, it could be ties into quality of life, which is having being able to come home safe, which translates to infrastructure, ability to make sure that people that have behavioral health issues have, open space, for example, or that we have the roads to be able to commute to actually have a job. So it means a lot of different things, but instead of becoming positional, I want to explore and have more of an open conversation about what do these things mean to us, because I think they might mean very different things to us.
Is that once you start identifying the objectives underneath, let's just say public safety is a goal, a standalone goal. Once you start identifying what those objectives are, now you've identified what you want to see around public safety. In a way, it kind of defines public safety as a strategic goal. Just as an example, so if it's public safety, that means we're going to increase the budget to increase staffing in police and fire. Right? That could be one objective. Another objective could be we develop a program for people who mental health issues to help people with mental health issues. Could be another objective underneath that. So notice that public safety then becomes broadly defined by the objectives that are underneath. Councilmember Perez.
I see it all as quality of life is the goal and everything is underneath that. Public safety, quality of life, that's together. I agree. Public safety is number one. Our emergency responders need to be made sure that they have all the equipment and tools and staffing that they need.
Okay.
That's needed.
Okay.
Just needed.
Okay, so what I heard was that public safety as a standalone goal. When I'm just listening to around the table here and we're very informal, obviously, we're not going to go with make a motion and Robert's Rules of Order and all of that. But what I heard was we can if that's necessary. Then I have to turn it over to the mayor because I don't.
I don't
do
think
that,
we need to
right?
do that.
Yeah.
You guys don't.
But as I was listening, what I heard was public safety is a standalone. If I'm counting in my head based on the comments that were made, can we live with that?
Like, I didn't hear that. I mean, I was the
Yes.
goal, but public safety was at the top underneath
Did
that.
I hear that from you, Councilmember Perez? Oh, okay, so I'm mistaken.
I mean, but it's, they're right there, but to me, it's under.
It's under quality, so let me take that back. Then I heard 3 people saying quality of life with public safety folded in, and 2 saying public safety standard. As I heard that. Can we live with that?
I don't think we have a choice.
Okay, well, let's move forward. Let's move forward and use these as they're written as the top, as your 4 strategic goals. And then let's get into fleshing out what goes underneath those strategic goals. And I'm gonna have you all obviously identify this, that these are your goals and your objectives, but this is where Dave your city manager can weigh in and say, well, I'm not sure that really works, or that's not possible, or yes, absolutely, we're ready to take that on. So he can give some guidance there. Strategic goals are really the purview of the council, and then the objectives need to be worked out in partnership with staff, because again, you don't want to set yourself up not to be successful. Okay, so let's start with infrastructure. What would you like to see accomplished under infrastructure? And Jennifer is taking notes, and we're all taking notes, and then Jennifer's going to type it up and we'll get it displayed after we have a discussion about what goes underneath infrastructure. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So a statement was made earlier that we've prioritized infrastructure, but I don't think that this council has prioritized infrastructure quite yet. The last council, if I'm not mistaken, did put together a plan for the roads and the alleys, but we've never adopted or implemented that plan. Well, I think we did like maybe 5% of it, right? So what I'm hearing from my conversations with the staff is that we are now prioritizing infrastructure, in that during budget cycle, we're going to be talking about bringing back the CIPs and starting to hammer away on that. Infrastructure, to me, the number 1 complaint that we hear about is the roads, that they're not in great shape. So that's something that the old council, including Mr. Councilmember Perez, Councilmember Burns, and myself, put together a plan, but we haven't really executed that plan. So I'd like to see us execute that plan. We need to do a better job in partnering with the state to ensure that we widen Highway 25 as part of that. And then our infrastructure underneath the roads is aging as well. So we've got sewer lines and water lines that need to be replaced, in particular in the downtown area. I think they're 100 years old. And if we've got this newer infrastructure going around it and we keep bringing it to this side of town, we've really got to do a better job of targeting, I guess, that downtown area, getting a better picture of what's underneath there, and then starting to replace that as well. I think those are, when I'm thinking about infrastructure, I hear those are the most important things that I hear out there: roads, and then the pipes underneath the ground.
And widen Highway 20.
Widen Highway 25, repair the roads, and we probably, so if we're going to talk about partnering with the state on repairing those roads, the county roads are in very poor shape as well. But I think they've done a pretty good job of starting to hammer away on that, the county. So we can partner better with them as well.
Good. And we'll go to Councilmember Burns. The Vice Mayor mentioned we need to know what's underneath. So part of the objective might be we need to do research, right? We need to investigate to find out what the situation is, so we know what to do and we know what we're up against. And that could be a really legitimate objective, especially around some of your sewer and water lines that are not obvious and that they need to be investigated. Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you. So, in response to what you just said, I believe at the last council meeting, the council authorized the city to move forward to buy the equipment to do the scoping of the lines. And so, those things need to happen soon rather than later. And we probably need a true assessment of the equipment that we have, because this council found out that the actual equipment had been broken or was not really working well consistently, or, and so I think that's important to really understand, so that when it comes time for budget, we allocate the resources to where they need to be spent. And so for me, I've been in and out of Hollister for about 25 or more years now. The sewer has always been a problem. The smell of the sewer, and whether it be, at one point it was all thought to be created because of the cannery. We know that's not necessarily the entire story. And so for me, I think 25 years plus of a sewer smell is unacceptable. And for me, that's my number one priority for infrastructure. And then I would say, on the other end, and I've been advocating for this, and fortunately, I'm starting to see some momentum gained here. We need to maintain what we have. I mean, we get landscape and lighting monies, we get other fees for other communities. And whether it be painting sound walls, whether it be repairing things that are broken, we need to be good stewards of the community lands. And so for me, those would be my two. Thank you.
Excellent. Do you have a wastewater treatment plant?
We do.
And is that contributing to the smell? Is that a factor or no?
I'm going to defer to the city manager
Okay.
because I want it to be 100% accurate. Thank you.
And yes, this might be an engineering issue.
Sure. So we've had a conversation or two at some of our council meetings regarding our wastewater treatment plant. And just, I can give some context to some of the items. As far as the sewer truck, as an update, I actually signed off on the paperwork today to get that going. William's team got that over to me today. So that was turned around really quick to get that moving. As far as equipment assessment, I think William and the team have been going through that, and we'll continue that. We did have our kickoff meeting with a consultant to do the third-party investigation, as we had talked about at a meeting or two ago. And so we had a kickoff meeting earlier this week to kind of get that started, do an initial interview and get that conversation moving. And then I think the team has been looking, especially on the sound wall front, and looking at what that would cost and starting to do an inventory there. So and then now a good time on the infrastructure. So we will, we did bring back about $7.5 million worth of road work. And what we have the fortune of is that plan that was put together before. The initial part of it was doing a lot of the engineering work. So Mark and his team at Kimley Horn had done a lot of work to get a lot of plans to where they're at 100% shovel ready to go. And so we've been meeting with our team to assess those. Those projects are the ones that came before the council not too long ago, the exception of Lad Lane and the striping, we added that in. We did get direction for looking at a couple options for Memorial. And so the team has already put in the speed cushions. The bigger speed tables were ordered, and we just have to do the work to get someone to install them. They're bigger, and there's a little more that goes into those. We did get direction to look at a shorter term option and then look at the longer option. We talked about option 3 and option 1. After going through that process, actually the first option that the council had spoken about and wanted us to get input from the school and from the residents in that neighborhood. One of the challenges with us being relatively new is I was unaware at that meeting that was one of the projects that had been part of that package that you're speaking to. So that was actually an engineered project. So if we went to the $500,000 quicker option we talked about, we'd actually have to go through and engineer that, pay that, do that. Whereas we already have that on. So we're going to be bringing that back to just get final feedback and then be able to issue that if we get direction, including into that overall bid package. So that could raise it to nearly $9 million worth of work that we would put out to bid that would take part of the summer. And so we're excited about that. And one of the things we've been working on with the engineering team is looking at the remaining projects that are in there. A lot of communities aren't in the position to have shovel-ready projects at their fingertips. And so I put one of those forward where we actually pulled the water projects out and submitted a WRDA grant at Congress. And so that has made it past the first step. Those take a long time, but that's about $6.8 million with, you know, us putting in some money as well. And that would be aging water infrastructure around this neighborhood here, focused on the area where your fire flow pressure is lower due to the smaller size of the pipe. So we do have that good fortune of having that design set that was built out before. And so we're working towards putting shovel-ready projects together for our asks and grants that we're working as well.
Let's hear from Mayor Casey and council members Morales and Perez on infrastructure. Anything else to add to the list that hasn't been identified? Yeah, right.
You know, trying to help us catch up.
Excellent. Right. And some of the objectives get worded, work with the county, ... work with the state, ... right? It comes with the territory. Council member, anything to add to infrastructure?
So infrastructure to me is both internal and external. Internal means having the policies, procedures in place, all necessary training and expanded training. There's a lot of wonderful things that are happening out in the world, budget, and also all the internal controls necessary for us to function effectively and efficiently. Infrastructure also means roads, and there's a lot of education that needs to happen. For example, we can't widen roads anymore, so there are a lot of new state rules that deal with environmental justice and vehicles, miles traveled, and so those a lot of the things I think in terms of public perception there has to be a lot of education around that, which includes working with our community and the state, broadband, there's a lot of federal funds and partnerships that we could leverage or take advantage of, millions of dollars, the federal infrastructure funds. And for funding, would like to, and I have to say, all of these are already in progress. So we have started, I think, with our new city manager, they're already in place, already in motion. With state and federal funds, once we have our position, to have all the necessary documents in place, including support, letters of support and things of that nature, and the communication methods, to be able to respond within 3 days. So that's all internal, just being ready.
Yeah.
But yes, for me, it's internal and external.
Perfect. Very good. Anything to add, Councilmember Curtis?
Yes. The only thing really to add, and I'm glad that you mentioned that all these are in process already. Excuse me. One thing I haven't seen in process, and I brought it up to staff, and that's the 4th Street Bridge. It's dangerous, and I think it needs, if it's going to take 15 years to widen that and put a pedestrian walkway or whatever design they're going to come up with, we should start now instead of waiting for 15 years to start for 15 years. So we don't end up in the position of Highway 25. That's my biggest, but that's a long-term goal. All the short-term goals, you know, anytime we usually come up with any type of issues, we're bringing it up to staff. They're Johnny on the spot. So it's like, I'm confident no matter what trials or obstacles we come across, as a team, we can get through it.
Dave, any, before we wrap up infrastructure, any actions, any observations?
Yeah, I would say, just to add a little context, on the broadband side, we did get the LOTA grant. Paul has been working with Kimley Horn on some engineering work to get those plans developed for us that will, again, help us to become shovel ready, just like we've done on the roads and with the utilities. And just to go back to that, a lot of our roads projects also have the utilities designed in them, the water and the sewer within them. So, which is great because we can use that for like pulling out the water component of it and price it and then bring the difference to the table. As far as Acela, that implementation is underway. We still got a little ways to go. And our new assistant city manager has been working to take lead on that and work with the team and with Paul to get that across the finish line. Alleyways, part of the road project that we're doing this year, we'll have 3 of the alleyways. There's a lot more to go on the alleyway side. I actually took Mary to visit some of those alleyways today as we had a meeting. So to give her some of that context over there to help see with her own eyes what that looks like. And then, yes, Highway 25 with COG and staff is willing to be supportive of Benu and the team over at COG as well. Policies, procedures, and training. I think that Casey and his team have taken the lead on a lot of that, and we have a ways to go, but they've done a great job with kicking a lot of those off. We have a lot of work in that department and along with the training and that. You had roads. I think we've discussed the road side. Additional broadband grants. So we do keep our eyes on that. I think the big piece will be having the shovel ready piece. So we've got that first step underway. Getting there with the letters of support. And actually our new assistant city manager has been helping with that effort as well. So, and then the 4th Street Bridge, that would have to be something that would be a county partnership that we would work with them and state and feds. And yeah, that's a big ... So,
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to mention that I think Councilmember Perez mentioned that a lot of these items are being worked on. So we want to be cognizant of that as we develop budget to ensure that these can get across the finish line. And I have to commend the staff. We've taken on a lot of projects this year and they've done a great job getting them either across the finish line or close to completion. So we always want to be mindful of getting those across the finish line to completion before. You know, it's really easy to get into the habit of getting to 80% and then taking on something new, and then that 80 slips back. So they've been doing an incredible job pushing that forward.
I appreciate that comment because you want to make sure your 80% continues to have quality, because that's your everyday service delivery. You don't want to spend so much on your strategic goals that you forget day-to-day operations because the community depends on this. Okay, Jennifer, all good on your end in terms of capturing?
Perfect. And Sean, one thing I would mention is the 80% that you're talking about, the daily operations. That's where a lion's share of the staff work is. And a lot of the newer projects that come through this stage are actually either being handled directly by the department heads or a combination of department head and someone, one of their mid-managers that they're working with. So, have to be mindful of bandwidth and keeping priorities.
And that's another good point because you have lower level staff that's doing the day-to-day service delivery, And the department head obviously oversees that and makes sure it's all going well, but the department head is city manager, lowercase city manager, also looking at the strategic goals and making sure that what they're responsible for, that those are getting the attention they need.
Sean,
Yes.
just for clarification, when we talk about council communication with staff, I'd like to maybe refine or repurpose the process as it relates to the communication piece. And my sense is anything as a council member should go directly to either the city manager or the city attorney, and it's their right, role, responsibility, and obligation to then distribute it.
Yeah.
The department heads don't report to Tim Burns.
Right.
I have no control over what they do and how they prioritize things. I trust the city manager to do that, but I'm not convinced that that's always been the case. And I'd like to understand what best practice is in regard to that so that we can model ourselves after that.
Let's just take a couple minutes and just address that. And I'll let Dave speak to that, but every city's a little unique and every city manager's a little unique and has a different kind of protocol. And sometimes some city managers want everything worked through them as the council appointee, and then that city manager distributes to the department heads. Other city managers, yes, you can talk to the department heads. Don't go any lower than the department heads, but council, you can talk to department heads. Make sure I'm looped in. That's another model that I've seen. Dave, do you have a preference?
Yeah, what we've been doing since I've been put in the role is pretty much the communication has been coming directly to me. There's been some times where maybe the chief gets a call or William may get a call, but for the most part, it has come directly through me. I think that's been working well. What that does is it allows me to speak with the department head because what they would end up doing is circling back with me anyway. And then there may be a follow-up question that I would ask, and it may turn into a chain where we ask 4 times and the efficiency maybe isn't there or something gets lost in communication. So I would say for the most part, since I've been in the role, the council's done a great job of working with me. And I hope that I've been, providing that communication back, to work through the channels so that you are all informed of what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to your, and I'm not putting these in priority order, but the second strategic goal, which is budget, finances, and economic development. And as I mentioned earlier, as you talked to me about that, it was ensuring financial stability, monitoring, exploring ways to maintain and reduce expenditures, and then increasing revenue generation, lots of ideas underneath that, including the tourism that we heard earlier, and then strengthening economic development as well. So what would you, does that hit the mark for you? And then talk a little bit about what you'd like to see accomplished underneath that. Councilmember Perez, get us started, please.
Yeah. Our budget and finances, like, again, these are all pretty much in process. As far as budgeting, I think until we get into specifics of goals and budgeting money towards that, which I'm sure Dave will have confidence in Dave that he's going to figure that out. The economic development, it's like, yeah, we're trying to bring in more businesses so we keep our residents local instead of traveling on the freeways, because that goes into quality of life. It's about being home with your family. You know what, our parks department, I think of that, it's not really in the economic, but it's like, I have no other ideas.
Okay.
I have no ideas.
No, that's good. And attracting new business.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we are, like I said,
Yeah.
our industrial area is coming along pretty strong. We get a lot of complaints about wanting more jobs here. Well, they are on the way.
Yeah.
They are on the way, and hopefully there'll be more sustainable living wages in the future.
You attract new businesses, it keeps your residents local and contributing locally, and it's the tax base. So it's a great economic development act. Councilmember Morales, anything to add to,
So, one is, first I want to just recognize Casey and, David have done a phenomenal job since they started on everything related to budget finances and we're working on economic development. Especially appreciative of the budget books that we've had for the first time in, I think, ever. So those are huge accomplishments that I think in other jurisdictions, people take for granted, but they don't realize or understand how much work and effort it takes to just get that done when, it has never been done. So, thank you. So that goes into my number one, which is making sure that staff have what they need to be successful and continue to do, not just the operations, but, looking at where we were in the past 12 years and moving us to where we need to be from a functioning, we were functional before, but from what we need in terms of documents, which includes transparency and trust to the community in terms of our finances, because that wasn't published before. So, then looking at moving from day-to-day operations to having nationally recognized achievements in forms of budget, finance, and economic development. And that means like going back to, instead of responding to community and constituents about day-to-day operations, really looking at what are some public policies that we can move forward in the next 3 to 5 years, for example. This could be like climate action plans. This could be looking at what our community public safety and what a safety community looks like and what are the elements, having a community engagement, which means having town halls, having surveys. We can't do that until we kind of have a strong foundation and being able to just have what our staff needs in order to be successful, to make sure that they're maximizing the day-to-day operations to be free, to be able to do some of those public policy visioning from the council. In terms of economic development, we have huge opportunities here, which include our airport. We have tons of innovative businesses because of proximity that could benefit. I'm looking to what this means to me. It means making sure that all elements that the city oversees, which includes like planning, it could be code enforcement, all those are done with their day-to-day, have that kind of pinned down, and start looking at how do we make this easier, more community and user friendly, and how do we automate as much as we can? How do we become efficient so that we can get things done in 3 days, for example, versus several months or several years?
Great. What would you like to add to this category?
I think they've covered it as far as the budget and finance. I think we're in better shape than we have been in years. And I attribute that to our city manager and our administrative services there. We've got, I feel like we're getting somewhere with that, and it's so my focus more is, I guess I'm looking at the economic development side, and I think we have taken it pretty seriously. We're trying to hire a director. It's been kind of hit or miss trying to get economic development here. And of course, tourism is something that we're looking at, especially because of Pinnacles and our wine industry. The airport, of course, a couple of other industries, ag tech. And personally, this is just my own personal thing, is I'm interested in green hydrogen, which is something I was talking to Senator Caballero about. She's all about the green hydrogen, and we have Zero Avi at the airport that's doing hydrogen conversion of airplanes. And it's just, there's potential opportunities there. There's a lot of funding that the feds have just given the state, like, I don't know, creation of green hydrogen. So I see that as potential. There's some intersections where we might be able to do something or attract some business there. Revitalizing the downtown was one of my goals, and it was like number 5, I think. I'd like to see that under economic development somehow as an objective, because when businesses look at coming here, they look at your downtown. So trying to do as much as we can to improve it is I think important, an important part of that. The other thing that I think our director, when he or she comes in, could help with is developing strategies to support small businesses that we have here. retention is as important as bringing new business. And what I've discovered over the last several years working with some of the small businesses in town is, there are mom and pop shops that are really great at something, but they don't have a way to do a business plan, or they don't know anything about marketing. So finding ways to support them, training programs, and I don't know whether that comes through the chamber or the EDC or, but I'm sure our economic development director can probably help with that. Even an incubator or entrepreneurship program would be a neat thing to develop here. We've got a lot of folks that are, starting small businesses, trying to build them up. So anything we can do to encourage that. So that's it.
Excellent. Very good. Anything to add? Under this.
Yes, thank you, sir. So, I think for me, again, like the other council members and the mayor have said, we've made tremendous progress in the last 3 years. And it's been gradual, but it's been consistent. And a lot of it is directly driven by the new leadership from the department head level and above, and from the manager level and down. And part of that's transparency and accountability, and just having the right processes in place,
Right.
and having them memorialized so there's consistency in process. But I also would like to see a more regular financial forecasting, because at the end of the day, the economy is a little unstable, and I hear this and then I hear that, and it's really hard to plan a year out in advance when you really don't have a strong basis for that. For me, one of my priorities is to make sure, and this city has done a really good job, I'd say in the last couple of years, about making sure our wages are competitive and our benefits are competitive, so that we can not only recruit, but we can retain good staff. Our police department has done an amazing job recently, and the other departments as well. But I think our police department, because everybody recognizes law enforcement, it's hard to keep people, it's hard to get them, let alone keep them. And we've kind of, our chief of police has done an amazing job to change that dynamic to where I'm actually hearing sometimes in the Central Valley where they're talking about, hey, have you heard about what Hollister's doing? I just heard that last week. And for me, that's encouraging. And so, but we need to commit to that to ensure that it continues, and not just take it for granted that it's fixed, because it's not fixed. But again, kudos to the law enforcement. I'm really excited about the fact that we've got a new fire chief coming on board. And for me, oftentimes we bring people from outside the community in that have a depth of experience, you get the benefit of that experience. And our fire departments have done a great job as well. But from a budget standpoint, I absolutely would like to see where we land with our costs to the county, because we provide fire service to the county and the city of San Juan Bautista as well. And so and I've been harping on this before I got on council. And so I think we really need to define that. I would also say I think we need to define what our true costs are for animal control services that we also provide. And I don't know where it lands. Maybe we're making more than we should. Whatever the numbers are and whatever the facts are, they need to be clearly put out there. And so we can ensure that we are being responsible for the city of Hollister residents and their taxpayers' money. Again, as has been said, the airport, I've heard the conversation that the airport's a diamond in the rough. I've heard that for decades. Well, at some point we need to shine up the roughness. And I think, again, through the city manager's hiring of a very qualified individual, I want to hear his vision through the city manager at some point in the future, because we know there's unlimited opportunities out there. And we're already starting to see some of the things starting to happen either in the last 3.5 years, and where they go. I think that's important as well. And for me, a lot of it has to do with that. And then I want to go back to the PD for one moment too, because when we're talking budget, I know that we've expressed the interest, the chief has expressed the need to create a communication center. And I know that there was a consulting firm that was brought on to do an analysis. And the last time I heard that was going to be a several $1 million expenditure. And so we need to be prepared to move forward, because shame on us if the thing that stops it is not having the money. So I think we need to forecast and I've asked, and I know the city manager's committed as the chief to bring us an update in the near future because it puts us in better control versus having our medical and our police services and our fire services dispatched through Santa Cruz County. Right. Made sense at the time, no longer makes sense as we grow. And so for me, those would be my things for budget. Thank you.
Excellent. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So when we talk about priorities, I know we're not numbering them in the number of the priority, but budget and finance has to be number one. We can't have public safety. We can't have these talented individuals, sitting in the room if we're not being fiscally responsible with the dollars that we're given by our constituents, right? So let's make sure that's really clear. And I echo the sentiments of my staff. I mean, I'm sorry, my colleagues, the staff's doing a great job and of making the process a little bit more approachable and friendly. What I worry about are the one-offs that come later, and that's usually from the council. There's a lot of these one-offs that come later that are very costly. So I think that we as a council need to do a better job of staying within the realms of the advice during budgeting time and we're asking the staff to do the same thing when it comes to time to budgeting. So we have to lead by example in that sense. We're given a budget, we're given a process to budget, and then we need to make sure that we stick within that budget because if we don't, then we can get into trouble. Some other variables that were brought up were the economy. We don't know what's going to happen with the economy. So are we going to have those one-offs? Yes, of course, but we can budget and plan for those as well. So I think that's the first and foremost number one priority. The airport, I think we need to capitalize on it big time, because like was stated by my colleagues here that we have a unique opportunity there, especially being given the fence privileges, and we need to find out what we can do to help generate some more revenue there. So that has to be a huge priority. And then the ED economic development person, I don't have any interest in contracting with anybody outside of our staff to do that. And I think that we need to prioritize bringing in a staff member that's going to help the airport person, that's going to help generate more revenue for our police, generate more revenue for our parks and recs. Like we have to prioritize generating more revenue, attracting more business, supporting all businesses. And we need to be fiscally responsible when it comes to budgeting and finance here. Thank you.
I'll let Dave weigh in as we wrap up this goal here. The one-offs, I think for me, you really you identified it well in terms of moderating the one-offs and then putting that into a budget category. Can we afford that? So the messaging could be, yes, community member, that's really important, and I'm going to ask the city manager to consider that as part of the budget process. I think that would be a wonderful step forward, and it puts some structure around the one-off, so it's just not scattered all. Dave, thoughts here about the one-offs or about the
yeah, just, I mean, to put a bow on the one-offs, I would agree. One thing we got to keep in mind is the budget is a policy document. It's our staff, it's a work plan and the staff plan to support it. So when that budget is being presented and contemplated and we go through the hearings, that budget is built to deliver the goals that were in that, you know, the funding, the staffing, everything is to support what was budget approved. As I get, there's going to be times when things come up throughout the year that may be mission critical, but when not, those additional asks throughout the year aren't going to come with staff. They're not going to come with new staffing. And so what will happen is it'll become more of a priority because it was asked for during a more recent council meeting. It gets put on a list at the end. We get asked about it if it's not coming forward on the list. So what staff are doing are then redirecting their efforts to get those off across the finish line. And then those items that were part of the budget, that becomes the juggling act. And so I think, you know, if we, through this process, that would be very helpful. And I think that's one of the pieces that would come from that is staff have their marching orders to go. Now I get it. We're going to have an emergency. You have, you know, you could have a flood or a disaster or an infrastructure crisis. We're well aware and prepared to handle that. but we need to be mindful of those goals because they don't come with staff behind them and your team and you know, we've made mention there's a lot of new staff. There's also a ton of existing staff that have done a fantastic job through this and have been the core, you know, with all of us being able to, you know, a lot of them, especially, you know, at the next levels below the department heads have been the institutional knowledge, really getting in there and getting it done and helping to support us. And so, what ends up happening with the one-offs is this team behind you often is handling many of those. And when they're handling those, they may not be able to give the guidance and the support to their team that's doing the day-to-day to 80%. If I can just go through a few that I'm hearing, ensuring that staff have what they need through the process. And we'll look at that at budget. I think that they've done a good job. We've been working to have the tools in place. A handful of those tools just take time to implement, right? One of the things we're working on that was, you know, at my level is, you know, we have our bid software. It also has a contract component. So, you know, those are some of the operational tools that are within my purchase authority that they're working on. It may not make it to council, but it gives us the opportunity to track all of that, track your certificate, your insurance certificates, makes the reporting at the end of the year much more streamlined, as well as knowing when the budget time comes that this contract is going to expire in 6 months. Let's start negotiating, or a year, depending on the level of service. So climate action plans, we'll have that coming forward. It's one of the projects that Eva and her team have been working on. And then on the communication side, just more town halls and surveys. And I think as we get our tools in place, that's something we could certainly look at. I'm hearing economic development at the airport kind of ring true throughout. I know that Jeff, although being with us just over 6 months now, 7 months, has done an amazing job to really start to put some plans together with the owners of the property that's on the other side of the fence to get their vision and buy-in for putting a taxiway that could support more than just the property or two that have access now. And we've already done some preliminary work with the EDA. They're interested in an application, so we're working with them to try to get that project across the finish line. But what we really wanted to do is make sure that, you know, the property owners that, you know, are our partner in this had a seat at the table, and we've been working through that process. Other areas that we could look at is, you know, if throughout the year, if there's interest in putting together almost an economic development program for out at the airport, where we can try to put some incentives in place to attract certain types of, you know, certain types of industries that would help support the airport. And, you know, there's all types of different programs you can do to recruit that are within our authority that we can do. So that's something we could take a look at. Tourism, maybe Sean, can we delve into that a little bit? Sure. So on the tourism side, I have it coming up as under Mayor Casey. I didn't hear it. Then correct me if I missed it in my notes.
Just the
community speaker and Mayor Casey. So is that an area that we want to focus on?
So I'm very intrigued by what the public comments were tonight. And I would like to know more about that. That's like a news flash to me, breaking news. I don't understand the depth, but if there are ways to multiply what we're hoping to do, I would be very open to that. And I'm also, as we talked earlier today, very supportive of the economic development manager, but I know it's open until filled. And if we need to reassess, I've heard it referred to as a director. Maybe it needs to be a director versus a manager, and whatever we need to do to get the most qualified applicant to become that individual to move forward, because I love the idea of focusing on the airport. There are other additional opportunities, but I really want to take ownership of this as a council member and the city. And maybe we fund, you know, the county collaborative, maybe we don't. that's another conversation to be had. But, you know, every day we don't have that position, there are opportunities that are lost as I see them. And so I'm very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a good question. What's going on at the county level? What opportunities are there for us to partner with them? Do you know, Dave?
Yes, so the county has put together, it was an economic development, but they've changed it, I believe, to Economic Advisory Commission or Committee. Mayor Casey, you serve on it. Maybe you could give an update from your perspective of the meetings that have been had. I know that it's gone through some different
Yeah.
shapes and forms and
It started out with just two supervisors are basically, they're the committee. But they invited the whole community and all of the different groups that are around business or the chamber or just local businesses that are interested. So they're trying to kind of, you know, and they invited the cities to come in as well. So I've been sitting on that and they've been bringing different groups in. The MDEP gave a presentation last week, just talking about what's going on in the region. One of the things that I'm learning more and more about is how important regional work is to everything we're doing, as opposed to being a little, you know, standalone county working with these other counties, and you get more access to funding, just support. So it's super important. And so one of the things I wanted to mention, they brought in the new tourism group that's formed. It's a brand new nonprofit, and Visit San Benito. I think they're going to be probably asking to come to council and give a full-on presentation. But I think as far as the city is concerned, I see us in a supporting role in that because, you know, obviously Pinnacles and all, there's things we can do within the city, but I see Tourism Council is taking the lead on, you know, bringing them here, but us doing our part. When I think Intergovernmental had a presentation by the Pinnacles superintendent, and it was fascinating to hear that we had 350,000 visitors in 2022, and about 80% of them come through Hollister. So it's like, how do we capture that? So that's something I see the city could focus on and do is, you know, branding and doing some things to capture them and get them to stop in. I guess the one of the things that chamber folks said is that the biggest customers at our hotels right now, they're people going to the Pinnacles, which I had no idea that there was that many actually staying here, you know, and actually stopping over. So
You could see Hollister, their home base for Pinnacle.
yeah, the home of the
launching
Pinnacles.
off space for Pinnacle.
Right, yeah.
Thank you. If I could just finish my thoughts, I think since I've been here, this has been a huge priority and we hear it time and time again, but I haven't seen a successful model that we've invested in or the county that shows like metrics and a return on the investment, concrete evidence that shows us this is what's happening, this is the plan, and this is how we capture more revenue from tourism. So I haven't seen a model. I'm not opposed to partnering with somebody outside of our employees to do that, but I'm not in a hurry to get there either because of our partnerships in the past. I'll be quite honest with you. So if somebody's here asking us for that today or in the future, then I think that we should like be careful and maybe pilot something in that sense. But I think that we're going to see the most benefit is actually bringing somebody in-house. And it seems like we're struggling to bring somebody here, but that has not happened either since I've been here. So I feel like we've tried one way of doing business, conducting business, and that hasn't worked 100%. And then we need to bring somebody in-house. And I do think that we have a responsibility to partner with the county and to promote all of the agritourism opportunities that we have here. There's huge opportunities for revenue, but we have to do it in a way that is going to make sense, that we're going to have a return on investment. We're going to have actual numbers, actual studies done, actual metrics, not just giving money to some partners and then them not being able to justify the rationale behind it. I guess that's been my hugest concern. So I don't know if we're there yet. If an opportunity were to present itself, I'm definitely willing to test it out. But I think priority wise, I would love to see somebody in-house working with every one of these administrators under the city manager's directive to do that. So maybe we need to look at how we're doing recruitment for that and change that strategy potentially.
So one of the things too, and I think it maybe was the mayor that talked about branding. Now, in this past year, we celebrated our 150-year anniversary. and we've rebranded to some degree. But I think you kind of hit on it as well. When I worked for the city of Visalia, their brand was Gateway to the Sequoias.
Yeah.
And when I worked for the city of Spokane, Washington, it was near nature, near perfect. And if you go up there, you would understand that. And it's a hook, it's bait. And once you got them, they're here. And the mayor was talking about how a lot of the people we've got some pretty nice hotels now.
Yep.
And they have the potential, if we do bump the TOT up, to help generate some additional income, not only for the city, but for the businesses within the city. And I absolutely think some of those things aren't, it's not easy, but it's not rocket science. And I think that those could be things, whether it be our new economic development manager, director, whatever we call it, outsource it to a consulting firm. But I think the timing's good to do those things. And we've got this beautiful $250,000 sign downtown Hollister that, again, it's a focal point that people are going to come to. They're going to want to have their picture there. There's just a lot of simple little things that could be done, given staff having the time. And really the time means person or persons to do that in the process. And for me, I think there is value there that, and I couldn't agree more with Councilmember Resendez or Vice Mayor Resendez about we need to capture the data, because the data should drive the effort and the work. And the data, I've heard it talked about. I've not seen any data in 3.5 years. A lot of great ideas, nothing to reinforce that they are really, at least making us budget neutral. Thank you, Mayor.
So green hydrogen that you spoke about.
The fact that we've got to.
So then revitalize downtown. And so that could be a whole platform, that could be one-off initiatives. So maybe we could talk through that a little bit, Sean. I mean, or maybe take a step back and look at, as we talk about consultants and whatnot, there was some work done back in 2008 by HDA, and maybe there's the desire to take a step back and look at a master plan and have some bigger ideas that could kind of become its own, working plan within this with deliverables, but take that first step to put something out. It'd probably be something we'd put out for procurement to bring someone in to look at that.
There are thoughts on tourism.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So there's been a couple of different models that have been thrown around out from the community, from the chamber, they used to have a position, I think it was Jennifer, that used to do tourism. And so there's been a lot of really good ideas thrown out in the community. And, but we hear snippets from, depending on who's around us or whoever has an opportunity to meet with us. But I think that that the council needs to hear all of them. And to hear not only what the ideas are, but what's been proven, what's effective, but what could be something that we could do here. And I think that if it's the manager or even potentially a supporting role with the manager, that economic development, and we can add tourism. But I think we need to drive the process from a data collection and implementation perspective. And our community doesn't have the foundation through whether it's a partner organization, because people tend to leave. And so you have that rotating door which makes it really difficult to point at data to say this is effective, this is gonna work, it's not. And have that research-based perspective, and also to be able to get things unstuck at the city level. Or have a partnership with county to get things unstuck at the county level as well. You want to add anything on tourism?
There's not much to add. I was really surprised hearing all the numbers of the people that traveled through Hollister to get to the pinnacles. It was amazing. Pretty much it.
Oh, just generally outdoor recreation. We have so much here. I mean, there's Hollister Hills, we have a huge, I know it sounds like it would be just a kid's thing, but there's a huge paintball course here where people come from all over to play paintball. We've got glider rides, we've got people with parachutes, and I mean, there's just a lot to do outdoors as well as the pinnacles. And I just think that's a whole tourism base in and of itself that is ready-made that we could like jump on immediately. So
I think you've got enough here for your economic development director or manager,
10
whatever it
years.
is, to put his or her hands around that. I mean, there's some real potential here. Anything else, Dave?
Let's see, strategies for downtown businesses and training programs. I know SBDA just, the operator just changed, trying to blank, they're out of Salinas, I'm sorry. Uplift. And so, yeah, then we have the uplift on, California jobs. So there's a lot of initiatives going on right now, and we'd be happy to maybe connect on the SBDA side. Because they actually get grant funding to provide training. And we are part of that service area that they're supposed to serve with those dollars. And so one of the, SBDA, or is SBDC, I'm sorry, the Small Business Development Center. Councilmember Burns, you had talked about more financial forecasting. We've added to the process quarterly in our quarterly reports. Are we looking for more frequency than that, or maybe just an update we send out? That's not a,
No, I think
Form-
quarterly works unless there's something that's urgent that we need to
Okay.
know about. I mean, and you guys have done a great job so far.
and the fire service costs, I know I've said it, but we very close to bringing that back, so that will be agendized. And then I'll work with Chief. We've had initial discussions on the whole animal control side of things. We actually gave a couple presentations. His team did a great job presenting not only to the county, but at the intergovernmental committee as well. More of the airport, so I think that's a reoccurring theme that we're hearing. And then I know Chief will be bringing a communication center update, and then branding. And I think on the vice mayor side, we've touched on all of those through, because I started with the one-offs, and we had airport and economic development and piloting on the tourism. If we're going to go there, pilot on the staff side. So
Perfect. Excellent. Very good. Okay, we can move on. We have quality of life, which of course now includes public safety, and just what initial ideas around objectives were increasing program and securing facilities for families, youth, and seniors. A community center was mentioned, a skate park was mentioned. This might also include beautification efforts citywide, including downtown, painting, landscaping, sound walls, power washing sidewalks. Develop and enhance parks and outdoor spaces was another aspect under community safety. Quality of life. And then under public safety, Councilmember Burns had mentioned this, recruiting and retaining police staff, enhancing public safety programs. And it could also include infrastructure to protect against emergencies and natural disasters. Wildfires, earthquakes, floods, that could easily fit under infrastructure, or it could go under public safety. So, but that's just a preliminary list. As you think about quality of life, as you think about public safety, what are those objectives underneath? Anybody want to get it started? Want to get it started, Councilman? Okay.
So you pretty much covered them for me. I think, again, public safety to me is priority one. And And this council has been very supportive and very open-minded to embracing technology because we have to learn how to be smarter. We can't just overwhelm them with numbers. We've seen that. That's just not going to happen. And so the chief again has been very much on top of the game, and our IT director Paul as well. They've worked well together, and we need to continue to stay at the top in my mind. To look at technology and how we can continue to assist our law enforcement. One of the things that I've been very focused on are the parks, and I can tell you in the near future, all the parks in my district will have cameras, and they're very subtle. But I also know they're downtown. We've recently put in flocks in other areas, higher areas where there's a greater need. And so I think we just need to embrace the technology and commit to that. Because at the end of the day, I don't know what the current cost for one police officer is so comp, but I know we can do a lot of technology for one. And they're hard to, and our officers are hard to replace. So, and again, I think for me, it comes down to making sure that we always, I want to be competitive plus to ensure that. So for me, and then the parks are the other thing. We need to find a way to really maintain our parks. And again, I've had a recent conversation with our city manager. He's very proactive in this area, and because of that, his staff is very reactive to his proactivity, which is a very good thing, even as it relates to maintaining the water features. We've got some parks now that we've got some aging infrastructure, and the city manager and his staff have developed plans not only to maintain it, but to go in and proactively update it. And so, and there's a direct cost to it. And so, but we want our people to stay here. I mean, they're working, they're busting their butts and doing a lot of commute time. So we want to make sure that we have a great city for them to live and play and hopefully at some time work. And so for me, I think those are my two biggest concerns. Thank you.
Excellent. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So first off, when I look at this, I think they do pair well together. We're talking about quality of life and then public safety. So we're talking proactive and then reactive, right? And then everything in between. So I think we have to place heavy emphasis on being proactive and improving the quality of life of our kids. I hear from the constituents quite a bit about there's not a lot to do for like adolescent youth. That's not to say that our Parks and Recs and our PD have not done a great job. I think for me personally, and I don't want to, I don't know if I want to say this, but I'm going to say it. I think that they're the ones that I've seen doing so much since I've been here and have done more and more. And it's sad to say that we have to do more. We have to do more for all the departments. But out of all the departments, I think PD and Parks and Recs do them, like I see the most presence, the most growth in our community from them over the years since the time that I've been here. I'll be quite honest with you about that. But having said that, we need to do more. So we really need to focus on budgeting and supporting both of those departments and getting them the resources they need to be able to do that. I think when it comes to the categories, the list that you listed off, that was a great list. What I'd like to see added to that is public art. Art can really revitalize and change a community. So we need to find a way to include some more art elements in our community. We have an existing skate park. We talk about renovating it, and it just really hasn't came to fruition. So we really need to I think we've got to go ahead and get that renovated and see what we need to do, partner with the county to do that. And then there's these bike pump track parks, I think is what they're called, that are popping up. I know people that have gone all the way to like Watsonville or Santa Cruz to do that. So water parks, bike parks, skate parks, let's give our youth more things to do, because if we can keep them productive and engaged and low to no cost, preferably low cost, proactive sports, then the less we'll have to be dependent on the law enforcement. But again, the law enforcement is definitely critical in maintaining and keeping our public safe. Thank you.
Mayor Casey?
So I think you did touch on quite a few of them that I had on my little list here, but the community center, I mean, we've got our recreational department we have a small community center which serves some small seniors program, but we need so much more. And there is a collaborative group that's going on out there. I sit on a board that trying to get a bigger one built. It's going to take time. That's a longer term project. But also around that, they're talking about more programs for youth and families and seniors. We have some, but I agree with the vice mayor, we need more for all of them. And I'd agree with the whole enhancement of parks, especially we have Dunn Park, which has been, it was our central park for a long time. It was the gathering place of Hollister, and over time, it's it's getting help. We've had quite a few things done, but it needs more. And I think a focus on it. And we've talked about that at council as well, and talked about having kind of a green spaces program for downtown, maybe creating some little pocket parks, I guess they're called, just in some of the empty spots, maybe finding ways to encourage people to come downtown. The other thing is we don't have it as one of our main goals, but sustainability and environmental resiliency, I think could go under quality of life, because people are concerned about all the wildfires that have happened and, what is our plan? And so I think that's something, and I'm sure we're working on something in those terms, but I mean, it could just be one of the objectives to really have a good plan in place.
Did I hear climate action plan?
Yes.
So that's in process?
Yes.
Oh, good, very good. Excellent.
I mean, some of the things we've been talking about, the idea of electric vehicle charging stations or other things that could help promote our sustainability in the area. So.
And you can see, I mean, there's definitely overlap here.
Mhm.
You
Yep.
start, okay, well, is that infrastructure or quality of life?
They
Is
all
that
tie
right?
together.
They
Yep.
can tie together.
Yeah, I could go through the revitalization again and point out some more things that could go under quality of life, but I won't.
Councilmember Morales.
So high paying jobs, so people don't have to commute, they can be here and work here. Safe roads, if they do need to leave, they don't have to fear of being hit or hurt because of the low quality of the roads or the danger of the roads and the highways. Also, a lot of people need to leave the area to obtain medical services. And oftentimes that's a 2-hour commute just because of lack of services that we have here, and also shopping, because we just don't have the stores like Costco and Depot. It's been said already, but things to do for youth, from sports to like coding, to make them competitive for neighboring jurisdictions, and also make them competitive to get into that higher education. And there are also limited jobs for youth, so being able to have a program where we can actually link youth to either nonprofits or small businesses that are supported by government. Programs and services ranging from infants all the way to aging adults, quality of life. As you know, a lot of the trauma and the root cause of a lot of things for youth that are in the system or in foster care happen when under the age of 5. That's what you have first 5. And then a huge and a lot of things in between, and also for our aging adults population. Loneliness was a huge, I think that in some areas they're calling that a crisis. Also for quality of life, it's important to me and a lot of the people in my area is to maintain the small town feel, access to parks, having that sense of community. And I think Parks does a really good job of having closing downtown and having those community events that people really appreciate. We also have parades that are very much appreciated by the community. I'm going to plug this in. Park in my community, my district, if it's possible. Victim services, especially for vulnerable communities. We see a huge, a lot of our communities are afraid of government, are afraid of police. Our police is great, but just because they're coming from an area where police are the ones that kidnap you and will end up missing for years. But being able to provide services to victims of crime, but also make sure that if they are a victim of a crime, that they feel like they can ask for help
Mm.
and be able to get that help. And then when we do have emergencies, and if they do work out of the area, to being able to come in or having some type of infrastructure so that if they can't come back for 3 days or whatever, because they can't come back into town, to have a system in place where the community can support each other. They have small children or they have aging adults that they could somehow know that, I know that was the biggest concern I heard. It wasn't like, I have to get through because their vehicles got stuck. They're like, I can't not come back to my children or can't come back to my aging parents.
Councilmember Perez. Oh, yes.
For law enforcement data. Data is a great factor for, and I know we have a management analyst, but I'm still looking forward to seeing the data for prevention, intervention, suppression, predictability factors, and how do we tie that in with the census data, especially with the work incomes meals, help us target resources and look at how to work smarter. So that's data's a huge piece when it comes to law enforcement.
Which they pretty much hit it all. I just want to just really emphasize the Parks and Rec Department does a great job with our youth. I think there's some areas of our youth that are not being addressed, and those are the ones that don't play sports. You know, how do we reach those ones? How can we? What do we do? You know, that's pretty much been the thing on my mind. That's about it. Everything else my colleagues have said, I can support it all. The beauty of this whole thing is this is giving us a fresh look to see how we're working together. We should call it team building.
There was a renovating the skate park. And I know you mentioned that and the community center.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
For youth and giving them something to do.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting because over there on Cray Street, it just seems to be where they're kind of just converging on a little area by themselves anyways, naturally.
Okay.
And I know that the city and the council has supported those groups, so it's really good stuff.
If I can just piggyback on what Councilmember Perez said, he did bring up a great point. I think the high school does that too. We overemphasize sports activities. And I think if we can do a better job of partnering with arts and creative organizations like theater, arts here in the community for our creative kiddos out there, because not everybody, including my own kid, really enjoys sports. They are more creatives. So that's a great point.
Or thank God we have the robotics. You know, that's a great thing that's going on here in this county.
And there might be a partnership with your school district, right? I mean, it's, obviously you don't want to recreate the wheel or do something that they're already doing. Dave, thoughts around the quality of life, public safety?
Yeah, I think this may be an area where some of these are 2, 3 much longer term goals, because a lot of these are new programs. And I think Sean, you said it best in recreating the wheel. So maybe where we could figure out how we can lend support to programs that are out there. Some of these are more county led or high school led or college led, and we could bring that to the table. Or, you know, like in the case of youth jobs, the workforce board, I know I've partnered with them in the past, and you know, they have a great program, but they only get funding for 20 youth. So their program is boom, boom, in and out. 20 get it for the summer. It may be a different number now, but it's I doubt it grew much. And that's because they're living within a federal allocation. And so they get what they get, and that's what they get. And so there may be an opportunity there where, you know, we could look to partner with them. If I go through cameras in the districts, and I think you're probably pretty close with the last discretionary request. I'm not sure if it's 100%, but I know it's pretty darn close. And I heard maintaining of the parks and looking at the parks. I think the team has done a great job with that. We were just out at McCarthy Park on Friday and Park Hill. So Tina and the team have been working on, especially up at Park Hill, The Boy Scout project kicked off this weekend, as well as, yeah, and getting really close to finishing up the barbecue area, which will then be available for rentals for the community. Many years that was the birthday party spot or the big barbecue spot, and the roof had collapsed and there was some damage in there, and we've had some folks that lived in there for a while. And so there was some damage in there. So we're starting to see more of that, especially at Park Hill with the the 50-50 partnership with the Junior Giants to get that field going. We still have some ideas over there. That's one where Tina and the team have been looking at quotes for cameras up there as we reactivate that, but also I think it enhances the need for the cameras that we need to put up there. As far as the skate park, we did get a request to look at that, I believe at the last council meeting. So that is something that the team is looking at. I think overall, a lot of these parks, this may be something where we look overall in our CIP program and start costing these out. We're not going to have enough budget for all of these in the year, but as we bring the CIP, it shows the ideas and the rankings that we would put them in, and where we see the funding coming from. And so I think that many of these are already going to be in that plan, and we've heard that discussion. And so we'll get that updated there. As far as, let me just make sure I'm not missing any there. Let's see. For in the Parks and Rec world, a focus on, also including a focus on arts for non-sport, for kids that are not into sports, but arts. Councilmember Perez mentioned the robotics at the high school. I think I've heard that almost across the board. And so I think that's something that we can work, especially with the Arts Council. Green space in the downtown, the pocket parks. That is something that you had asked to come back and got consensus. So probably bring a discussion item to just have a more robust conversation of what that looks like, and get some direction on that. Resiliency planning, this council did approve us issuing RFPs for disaster debris removal. We're just about done with that contract, as well as some overall planning work and training around disaster work, around primarily earthquake response. I think we saw that we did really well last year. Our infrastructure performed very well with the floods in 2023. And so we're looking at bringing something to have that focus. We did get permission to go forward with that contract and are working the timing there where that would be something where the dollar amount is approved during budget. So that's just in final negotiations.
I don't want to get lost on about the most recent fire that we have, where the apartment complex is displacement. I mean, the fire department did well. Every department functioned amazingly well and was supported by the community and reinforced by the community. And to me, that was something that is very noteworthy.
Yeah, thank you. Our team was fantastic through that, as well as all the partners that stepped up in the community. I mean, it was pretty awe-inspiring to watch everybody within 48 hours, and then that week following in a couple weeks. Our partners at the food bank had to, basically keep the food bank operations going, but they really stepped up and kind of converted their operations. And so we're actually working with them on, because they have a lot of donations that we can use also for the next emergency. And so we're working with them to, we'll be purchasing a couple Connex boxes to help be prepared for that. So when that opportunity or one of those situations arises, we're ready to go. They've actually gone as far as to package everything in sizes and by age group and size and all of that. So depending on what the situation is, we can just grab and stuffed animals and all those little things that if something were to happen like that again, we're ready to go. And so we learned a lot from that experience as well. And so we'll have some components of the budget that reflect that as well. So small town feel, the parks, the events, the parades, I think, through our partnership with HDA and also the work that Tina's shop has been doing. I think we've had, I mean, we're going into the season now where there'll be something almost every week or a few things every week for the next 4 or 5 months. So we're excited there and have appreciated the investment in that. You know, we did increase HDA's contract to kind of bring them up to, they had not had an increase in a while, and they've done a great job. They've been great partners to work with through that process. And I will be having them come back to provide a report out to the council along with the EDC to give a report out on their progress. As far as the crime data report, Chief has provided something for me to review. It's on my desk to review and give some feedback, and then we'll be bringing it back to council for feedback and a report out. So that work is underway. Chief and his team have been doing a great job on that. So it's on my desk. It's off of his desk. And then for renovations of the community center, a lot of the outdoor work, we've already been doing most of that. You know, just from the landscaping, there's a little area where you got to pour some concrete. Your council approved a contract with a few architects, and they will be out on site to take a look at the bathrooms there. We've had some challenges with the restrooms, and so we're going to take a look at for this budget year. We'll probably be presenting improvements to those restrooms and probably going to something that's more family oriented. Those, you know, when that building was built 40 something years ago, it was you had the Razorbacks there, you had all the different sports right out of the building, your karate classes, and it's, you know, we still have some of those activities, but it's moved to more of a senior focus center. And with that, those bathrooms are, one, they need work regardless, but two, when you have the traditional few stalls and that may not be conducive to a senior that may need assistance when they're using the restroom. So we're going to look at that from more of a familial style of restroom and how many we can get in there. So we're looking at that as well. And we'll be bringing something back at budget for that. I believe I've captured everything.
So a couple things that kind of triggered a thought for me, David. One, and I know it's been a council, at least interest, would be annual reports. And I know the police department puts out one. I understand the fire department's putting out one. And it would be ideal, I think, because for all the departments, candidly, because all of the things that happen during the course of a year, if I don't know it as a council member, I can't share it with the community and not my constituents. And I think there's a real value in quality of work, not just competitiveness to it. And council member Morales pointed out the data. The data is really important. And I think it's not only important to the council, it's important to the community when it comes time to ask for things of the community. And so, and then the other thing I wanted to bring up is, and we didn't really talk about it, but I know this council's shown an interest, and that is to contribute to nonprofits for our kids. And whether it be the boxing or whether it be the clinics for fentanyl abuse, I think that maybe have some sort of a process, because it's been alluded to that there's only so many dollars. And when the budget goes through and it's committed to, we as a council need to stick to that budget. And so I think that if there's a provision for nonprofit contributions, and maybe they're scored like a grant would be scored or a RFP would be scored, to do that. I know that this council has been generous of their own monies across the board with their discretionary funds, but those only go so far. And in some cases, I think they're bigger than discretionary funds for council members. There may be an opportunity there that could be a win-win if we could find a way to help support some of those nonprofits that do things for our kids, whether it be education, whether it be entertainment, whether it be safety. And so I know our PD has rolled out an Explorer plan, right, Chief? And so that's a huge thing. I believe our fire department's got a parallel program going.
They do.
I don't know why people that are interested in public works or Parks and Rec, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for volunteerism And, I think we should, kind of inspire people to do those things. I mean, our planners could always benefit from some elementary level of help with interns in colleges, get them to, planning feels to me like it's a dying profession. And I've seen it at multiple levels. And so, again, how we do that, and most people are more inclined to want to do that if they get paid some level. Most cities and counties I've worked with have dedicated programs for internship that will pay and learn at the same time. And so, it's quality of life, in my opinion. It's also budget. I didn't want that to get away before we wrapped it up tonight.
Okay, and I think that's one of those items that'll probably be a little down the road for one main reason, not just staff capacity, but space. So, we're in the process of filling, Eva had over on her team, the 4 positions, and her exercise of the day is where, as we've gotten direction to get those filled, where we're placing them. And so that's been the
So
exercise
we
as
got
well.
4 new planners joining staff,
Well, we had 3 vacancies for assistant associate, and then
and you filled them
the
all?
senior, there's interview stage.
Oh, okay. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for our community as well.
So that's Eva's challenge du jour, and for Paul to figure it out too over there. And community centers, bursting at the seams, and same with where Casey's sitting. So as well as the airport, and we're all pretty, including this building. So that's one
I
of
get
the,
it. Makes sense.
I won't have anywhere to put anybody right now. So
Okay, so we're ready to move on to our 4th and final goal. Do we need a break? Or do we want to power on through? Good, okay. Community engagement, communication, and transparency. What I heard from you in the interviews: inform, educate, and engage with the community using multiple channels of communication, social media, monthly e-newsletter, town hall meetings. Rework the city website to be more user-friendly, include a public outreach component on all new ordinances, were some suggestions. And we just heard this evening from Councilmember Morales, transparency with finances and budget. And we just heard from Councilmember Burns on annual reports could be also part of educating the community and demonstrating transparency. Anything to add to the list there? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So I'm glad that you said educating, because I think that's not on here, but it should be community engagement, communication / education and transparency. I just want to add real quick that since I've been here, Paul has done a fantastic job of just kind of rolling out the engagement on many different levels. I think we're going live on YouTube, Facebook, etc. The one thing that I think that we can grow on, that the PD's always done a wonderful job with this. I see the county stepping up to it as well. Make it a little bit more fun. In this day and age, you're competing with some really interactive fun. And I hate to say it's kind of cheesy sometimes, ways of engaging the community on social media. And I think we can do a better job of that. I think I've talked to you about it, right? You've got to get them to want to watch the meetings, get them to watch these little snippets and everything. So we can make it a little bit more fun in that sense and engaging. In PD, I don't know who's doing your social media, but you guys have got that down for quite a while now. So kudos to you. But that's what I would say that we can probably work on. Everything else you said, those would be my thoughts.
Another city I'm working with is really emphasizing the fun piece with videos and gamification and all of that, and really making it has to be lively. You're competing with a lot of other outlets that are fun, and so you've got to compete with them. Okay, yes, Councilmember Burns.
Thank you. So for me, I agree 100%, but I also think we need to speak with one clear and consistent voice. And it needs to go through the city manager or his designee, so that there's no confusion about what the message is. And for me, that's critical.
You can be so clever, you
Right.
you lose the substance of the content.
Right, and I don't want us to be siloed up. Again, I think that's where, again, whether whoever the city manager designates as those people, but if it's bad messaging, there's a lot of collateral damage that is often difficult, if not impossible to undo. And so I think that for me, that's important. Thank you.
Councilmember Morales, any thoughts on communication, engagement, education, transparency?
Yes, so I'd like to see us one day. Create an app. There's a couple of different jurisdictions that have an app on your phone, and basically any city service that you want, you just click the city service and it kind of generates a ticket. And then, they have a great track record, usually within 20 minutes. That's because of a city that's like 2 million people. They're able to get things done in 20 minutes. So you submit a ticket and then depending on what it is, they come and take care of it. And then you're like, your issue has been taken care of. So it also, just like in IT, a ticket generates like, 90% of the services are being done in, Mr. Burns district or, and then that also helps us allocate, look at how do we educate to make sure that the community knows that they can access service. So go back to data, but it helps with data tracking, in having, in knocking on doors. A lot of our residents don't know any of the services that we offer. They don't know who to call. Some of them don't know that they can navigate through our website. Some didn't like our website. They've also complained that a lot of our like Google Maps, if you look at the fire station, they're sent out somewhere up the road to nowhere. And so the locations aren't accurately displayed. And also our businesses are not accurately displayed. So folks are losing a lot in terms of just being able to navigate through the city and effectively. I also like to see for our departments to implement a customer service survey. So it generates, how are we doing? How quickly did you get service? What was the interaction with staff? A lot of folks use this for incentives, so they get X% of dollars or whatever. But it just helps us be a little look at it from we are servants, but we're public servants, and looking at how we provide services to our customers, which are residents, is key to being a public servant. I would love to see more community engagement. I know that a lot of folks say that they want to come in, but oftentimes we don't get a lot of folks. I was on a call today and somebody said that they want to see our council meetings back on TV. I don't know when we did that, but they're saying, I don't have a computer. And there's channel 17 through 20 that they used to just pop up and see the local. And so we're looking at how does our community, whether it's young people or seniors, how do they access information? And I like to cater to our clients and how they access information and what that's suggestible to them. And transparency, I think the more information, so in other areas, they have an open data, again, not anytime soon, but maybe later down the road. And every department publishes all their data. And people take that information, they can use it on apps, or they can look at it to actually look at information in a way that's usable to whether it's a business or a department or whatever, but it's just an ability to do your own analysis about what you need to do. It's also great for funding. But and communication, I think, now that we have our assistant city manager, I'm looking forward to a lot of the communication with our city. We're going to have a lot of issues that are happening and great events in the summer. So I'd love our community to be engaged. And I'm also a big fan of just science experiments. So the more we can kind of experiment to see how our community engages or what kind of turnout you get is really important and meaningful, especially on issues that are really important to them.
Councilmember Perez.
Community engagement. That's one thing I've noticed. I'm a waiver. I wave at city staff. I wave at police, fire. And I've really noticed that police officers are actually waving back. I think they're waving at me. But you know what? It's those little things. When I think of community engagement, it's the little things. I've had the opportunity to show up to a lot of the events that the parks or the city has done. to represent the city. And it's really neat to see how people really enjoy us being there. It's sure to show them support, and that's really huge. I think that was a huge, long way, more than I can even think of. Communication and transparency. Yeah. Transparency, it's funny, communication skills are not always the same with everybody, and transparency isn't the same with everybody. So it's like, and we got perception and perspectives. I don't know, I'm just really, you know what, we're all this that is we've done tonight is just confirmed to me that we are on the right track already. We are. We got bumps and we got little speed humps, too many, but I'm really satisfied with where we're going. Really am. But you know what, I'm excited to see what we're going to do in the future, because this is where we're at today.
You've got 4 really solid goals. Mayor Casey.
Let's see. I mean, I think people have mentioned a lot of them. We have our PIO on board now, and we've got our new assistant city manager. So one of the things I'd love to see is, I know when the city manager came on board, he was doing a few newsletters. But I'd love to see those come back and be done monthly, just to keep throwing things out there to the community. They want to understand things. I spend way too much time explaining how things work. And I can't tell you how many times I've answered the question about Fairview Road and why aren't we fixing it, because it's a county road, but they want the information. So anything we can do to encourage that. So monthly newsletter. I will say, I know Paul's got so many things on his plate, so I'm hoping that he can get some help with revamping the website, because as a former designer of websites, it needs to be super friendly and engaging and exciting, and it does the job, but I think that there's new technology and there's new things that are out there that could help us to get people to easily access and find things, including the app that you mentioned, Councilman Morales. And more social media outreach. I'd like to see us doing quarterly town hall meetings again. They used to happen. I think a lot of things went by the wayside when the pandemic happened, and I think we're just sort of getting back in the groove. I know for a while there were some, public outreach wasn't happening around ordinances, but I kind of pushed for it and the staff stepped up. They really came through and started doing them again. So I think we're back on track with that, but I really think it's important. One thing I've been speaking with the chair of the Board of Supervisors, and we've been talking about, they're going to be doing more educational town halls. We've talked about the idea of the city and the county working together, like on roads, explaining, who does what and why, and maybe having, some of our public works talk about the process so that they understand. So there's opportunity there. And I think there's a willingness from the board to do that. So it's something that we can think about as well. I think that's all I got.
That's great. Feedback on items here?
Yeah, just a few. Excuse me, on the website side, Paul's been working with Monica in our office, and we're close to rolling that out. I am hearing throughout most of this are PIO level duties. When I was hired as assistant city manager, there was a request for me to handle some of the, PIO duties. And then I stepped into this role and we backfilled some vacancies that were there, including a management analyst and then the executive assistant position. The assistant city manager position had been formerly handled by a handful of different department heads with a, slash title and an alternate role. One thing I would like to look at during the budget process is how we deliver these services, because by pulling and doing a majority of this work with the management analyst, that work isn't contemplated in the role of purely a management analyst. There's a lot of work that typically gets done in the office by management analysts. And when that management analyst is going to be doing newsletters, social media, all these different items, that really becomes a full-time job. And so from what I'm hearing here is really that enhanced focus, really focusing on, the county right now has a dedicated, that's the job. Whereas right now we're doing that as a +1 type role where we're all kind of splitting up and handling that. So that may be something that we look at through the budgeting process, because it's very clear from everybody that we want to have that stronger focus. But while we're doing that, typically the management analysts will be working on maybe some grants and the higher level policy work in our office. When that tool, that resource is being primarily used for PIO level work, then that work falls on everybody else. And so that would be something I would want to look at, because it seems like there's that heightened awareness, but I want to be able to deliver that and not sacrifice the traditional work of a management analyst.
The old days when communication just went out from the city government, there wasn't a lot of staff that was needed, just develop the content. Now you've got communication coming both ways, and you've got to respond to it coming back to you. You don't want to be a black hole, so that requires staff. Okay, anything else on community engagement, communication, education, and transparency? Okay, are we ready to move on to climate? Well, we've got a little bit of time here. We're slated to go till 9. At 8:20, do we need a break?
We'd rather get out early.
You powered through. I love it. Great, that's awesome. Okay, well, we'll see how long this goes. Again, there's no action item here on this. I'd like to do one of your package you got. Attributes of exceptional counsel. It's a great little article, 5-page article from the Institute for Local Government. I'm just going to walk through it and describe a little bit and bring in some observations and what I heard from staff. And yes, no action items here. Really, what I'm doing here is discussing after that hearing and you all get a sense about how your perspective. So the first one, exceptional counsel develop a sense of team in partnership with the city manager, government. I like to think of local government as working with what is politically acceptable, bringing that to the line. That's sort of the magic of local government. Sometimes it's politically acceptable, but it's not administratively feasible. Sometimes it's administratively feasible, but not politically acceptable. In terms of the key characteristics, clear portfolio, balance communicating for policy, goals, and demonstrate a willingness to work collaboratively as a team. Article came out before the even in the eastern instance before all very in the best practices, what do we do that? For example, how the governing team, their council members should get to know each other and get to know staff. I did not feel a lot about partnership between council and city managers, council and the staff actually in tonight, which are all very number 2 is the central council, clear roles and responsibilities that are understated and clear in that working the gap between politics, council, and the staff, and working the gap on that, but there's different roles. Set policy, budget adoption, strategic direction, problems happen, and staff starts to come forward. You're not in their lane. I'm going for problems happen when council starts thinking of themselves as staff. Council member Burns asked, how do I engage with the director who works with the city manager director? Just an observation about staff. Sort of that this executive level transition for them very well. Council very pleased with the new hires. It's positive contribution. Staff is saying that the executive team told us that the team members of it, everybody's happy that it's not about. And I can tell you that they know what needs to be done, they know how to do it, because it's not work. There are, I'm telling you, there are long-term problems. Policies, procedures, work. Long time. Got a staff that knows and ready, willing, knows how to work with it. I'm here to get council staff do that, chill out. It's seeing bolstering. On the not working as well with improvement, staffing still not like staff is, well, we've got everything we need and right now it's great. It's going in the right direction, but and then I mentioned staff is working on fixing those policies, fixing problems. That takes time, and that takes time away from them now working on and so that's above and beyond. I always hear how important it is. Yeah, because sometimes become too involved in sometimes not a lot, but that come up as number 3, exceptional counsel honor the relationship with staff. But what I see on the people list, council members have the ability to like powerful yes, sir. It would just be odd, and I would be all the time. That's just not the way to work. That 5 different individuals actually challenge you. If you bring a way that organizes and honest, doesn't become a different thing than how the issue becomes more personal. Move over into the personal side. Once that happens, now it's not. Counseling staff, both knows that Um, with that said, any reactions, thoughts? How can council and staff leverage what is working well and continue to expand on these successes in the future? What can be done to address areas for improvement? What can council do? What can staff? Any thoughts? This is just an open discussion. No action item. Very good. Any thoughts?
I've got some thoughts.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So I'm the most senior council member here, and I remember when you opened up, we were talking about a council member that I think wrote this. He had an MPA, Master's in Public Administration, and he was the mayor. and-
Oh, that was a John Newman.
Okay, well, I came to the council with an MPA. I'm now in the doctorate program at San Jose State for educational leadership, so I can relate to what you're saying here. And what I want to say is that since I started, there was, especially people in leadership that were working for us, that were very politically motivated. And I know that because now they're working as consultants. We had people that were on the council that were highly self-interested and politically motivated. And you see them come up as consultants now. I don't think that's the case anymore. I can say that I've seen, regardless of the politics that goes on at the council level, as far as the staff goes, they're doing a fantastic job. Dave's doing a fantastic job, and it always starts at the top. Without him, we wouldn't have such dedicated and qualified administrators. Without them, we wouldn't have such qualified staff underneath them. So I like how you said it was kind of like a dance, like an ebb and flow between us and them. And aside from the politics and the personal stuff that goes on, that's always going to be there, I think, regardless. That's democracy. That's how our government works. I think that we're doing a fantastic job. And I hope that these people that work for us feel just as proud as I feel as a vice mayor of the city of Hollister to represent my constituents and to be a part of this team. I hope and pray that they feel the same way.
That's good. That's
Thank
great.
you.
You know, it's been communicated very consistently this evening that you're very appreciative of staff. And is it fair to say that you have confidence and trust in staff? Is that fair to say? Okay, staff doesn't always feel that. They're not always feeling the love. Okay, but hopefully they're hearing it tonight. Yeah. Other comments, reactions, thoughts, anything that built on what the vice mayor said or taken in a different direction? Go ahead, Councilmember.
One of the things that's kind of not been part of this evening's conversation, and I think it's a huge game changer as well, that the previous council saw the need, and we have grown exponentially in our legal. And while our costs have increased, I think you get what you pay for. And so in my mind, to have the range of different attorneys with their expertises, whether it be land use and planning, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be finance, that's really been a game changer last year.
Yeah.
And it required a brave move on behalf of the council to go there because it's costing everyone more, but we're seeing the free benefits of that.
Yeah.
And I'd also say change takes time, and that's been my hardest lesson to learn as a council member. Even the simple things take a long period of time and patience. I'm not, it's a virtue that I don't have, but again, city staff, I think that we know that they're moving forward on these things. I mean, it didn't come up tonight either, the general plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked in a place where it took 8 years to update the general plan. And so for me, again, I don't have that patience, but you know, some of these things are monumental tasks.
Yeah.
They far exceed a task. And so there's a need on council's behalf, Tim Burns specifically, to be patient.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah,
it comes at a price, I'll say that.
No, exactly. That is a real learning for new council members, is having to develop the patience. It's been great working with Mary. She's I can tell she's very talented. And the attorney's office that I work with in some cities, the staff will say it's the office of no.
It's, you know, I bring this idea and they say, nope, can't do that, period, end of sentence. A good city attorney is, no, we can't do that, but let's talk about what we can do, right? What's a workaround? What's an alternative? What's a different option? And that's a really good city.
If I may, that's the whole atmosphere I see with our staffing. Before we step out, oh, we can't do that. You know, what do you?
How do we get it done? Yeah, legally, of course, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. And so what I'm seeing, and I'm new to Hollister, this is my first time working with Hollister. What I'm seeing is, if to put it into a larger package, is I'm seeing a culture change here. The culture of the organization, the whole thing, right? Council, staff, the community, the implicit norms and rules and work practices are being questioned about what happened in the past, and seeing that, you know, these were not as effective as they could be and should be, and making the step, taking the steps to make that change. And that creates a kind of a culture change. And that is huge. One of the organizational development people talking about strategy, right? You've got your strategies and you've got your culture. I think it was Covey or somebody, some famous organization. And what the saying is, culture eats strategy every single time. You can have the best strategy in the world, and if you've got a dysfunctional culture, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to get accomplished. And so culture is, it's a little nebulous, it's a little ambiguous, because a lot of it is the implicit norms and rules. It's not always what's written down, but it's huge in terms of bringing in new employees. What kind of culture are they being acclimated into? And am I motivated? Am I committed? Do I go the extra step? If it's a positive culture, a collaborative culture that prides itself on being excellent, man, you're gonna do much better at recruiting, you're gonna do much better at maintaining, and you're just going to be a better organization in terms of serving community. But even above that, it's going to be a more enjoyable place to work. It's a quality of life. It's a quality of work issue. Any other thoughts? You know, if we're all good, we can wrap up. And again, this was just reflecting back what I've heard, and you've got some great things. This is I'm sorry, let me just go one more point here. You've got an opening here. You have a new city manager. You've got a lot of new staff. You've got some of your senior executive staff are really talented. You've got new talented directors coming in. This is a huge opening. It's an opportunity here for that culture change. And I would just encourage you to just refresh yourself with that exceptional council, attributes of the exceptional councils, and think about how you all can collaborate together. When I come into a city organization, I look at two things. What is council relations? How does council get along with one another? How do they function as the decision-making, policy-making body? And what's the council staff relations? How do they treat staff, and how does staff treat council? And if one of those are not working well, it reverberates out. It has tentacles that go out in negative, bad ways. But if that's working well, council's working well together, remember, disagreement, yes, but productive, healthy disagreement. Council and staff having that partnership, knowing what each roles, what my role is, what their role is, honoring their role, staying in my lane, partnering with them in the dance that goes on, then you've got a great organization and you do great things. Okay, I think we can wrap up.
Well, what I heard, you have great organization.
And I've never seen the perfect organization where there aren't areas for improvement. Okay, whatever we need to do to close out our meeting, Casey. In adjourn.
Yeah. Yeah.
They already conquered.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get out of here before 9 o'clock.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
just walk up. It's not a big deal. I brought it to give to chief and then you guys saw it also. You want to know what's going on.
Well, we could do that after we adjourn.
That's just a flyer, so.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
I saw
Then
those.
we-